So I've talked a lot about free will on this channel. It's a complex topic that deals with every deep aspect of philosophy in our lives. Compatibilists say our unconscious motivations are part of free choice. We have to consider awareness of ourselves. If I know what I'd really like to do, then I react against that. Was I free? Was I even more free than if I had acted under the compatibilist version of freedom, which would be just to act with my unconscious motivations? There's an inherent failure in attempting to apply simplified thought experiments to complex situational reality. It's indirect reductionism. We're not attempting to radically reduce the information to generate confusion or cherry pick an answer to support a predetermined narrative. We're doing the best we can do. The best that we can do is a radical reduction of the actual reality that we see. And that's what we have to deal with in our understanding of what's going on in the world. I could see computers getting past this, but I don't see the human mind alone getting past it. This is the human condition. We're simply not capable of fully understanding our situation without the aid of precise and complex measuring equipment. Along with advanced AI, someday, we may get probabilistic analytic outputs that help us make decisions that give us the best chance of producing the greatest good. Buridan's paradox is necessary as a starting point in the process of asking questions, but I think the paradox arises simply because the question itself is not the right question. I just want to take a moment to say that the paradox I'm talking about today is known as Buridan's ass, and it's about a donkey, but I don't want to say Buridan's ass 1,000 times, so we're going to call it Buridan's paradox. But if you want to look it up later, just know it's Buridan's ass. Buridan's paradox is a thought experiment attributed to the 14th century French philosopher Jean Buridan, though there were other instances of the paradox in different forms mentioned all the way back to Aristotle. The paradox is used to illustrate issues related to decision-making, free will, and rationality. A donkey is placed exactly halfway between two identical piles of hay. Both piles are equally appealing, offering the same amount of nourishment and satisfaction. The paradox arises because given the donkey's rational nature, it cannot find a reason to choose one pile over the other. Unable to make a decision, the donkey is doomed to starve. Philosophical implications. Free will. The paradox challenges the idea of free will, suggesting that if faced with perfectly balanced options, a rational being might be unable to choose. Determinism. It can be seen as supporting deterministic views, where actions are determined by external factors rather than free will. Irrationality. Some argue that the donkey situation is unrealistic, as real-world choices are never perfectly balanced. This suggests that even in the face of seemingly equal options, other factors like instinct, randomness, or subtle differences influence our decisions. Criticism. Buridan's paradox has been the subject of various criticisms and interpretations over time, reflecting broader debates about decision-making, rationality, and logic. Here's some of the main criticisms. Practicality and realism. One major criticism is that the scenario is unrealistic and overly abstract. In real life, it's argued perfect symmetry between choices is rare. Decisions are usually influenced by additional factors, which means that a rational agent is rarely faced with a situation as theoretically symmetrical as that depicted in Buridan's paradox. I go on to say that our perception simply isn't that precise. We're geared toward all intents and purposes, evaluations. The difference between the hay bales in appearance, size, and distance is less important than the amount that will fill us up. If they appear the same, then any choice becomes the same choice and any one will do. Assumption of rationality. The paradox assumes that rational decision-making requires a clear preference or differentiation between choices. Critics argue that this view may be overly simplistic, as real decision-making often involves complex psychological and contextual factors that the thought experiment does not account for. Philosophical and logical validity. Philosophers have debated the logical validity of the paradox. Some argue that the scenario presupposes an unrealistic level of indifference and does not account for the possibility that even minimal differences or internal states, such as hunger or fatigue, could lead the agent to make a decision. Thus, the paradox may oversimplify the nature of choice and decision-making. Let's keep asking these questions. Let's be aware of ourselves to give ourselves the best possible chance at producing outcomes that serve the greatest good as a group and serve the greatest good as individuals. If you guys like this kind of philosophical subject matter, help us out by liking the video and subscribing.